Thank you, everyone, and good morning. I want to call to order the April 12th, 2024 meeting of the California Seismic Safety Commission. I'm Cindy Silva, and I want to welcome everyone here today. I am chair of the commission. I've had the honor of serving in that position for about 2 years. And if we keep and maintain quorum throughout the rest of the meeting, I will be out of office at the end of the meeting because we will be electing as our last act today a new chair and vice chair of the commission. You know, I think the last couple of months have reinforced the need for the Seismic Safety Commission around the world, just in terms of the seismic activity that we've been experiencing both here in the United States as well as in Asia. On the 23rd of January, they experienced a 7.0 magnitude earthquake in Xinjiang, which is in Western China, near Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, and Uzbekistan. And it resulted in 3 people who were killed and 6 who were injured, but very phenomenal damage. The same thing happened on what was our Easter Sunday in Taiwan, where a 7.4 magnitude earthquake did very serious damage. 10 people have died, 1,000 or more were injured, and 100 buildings were damaged, and that damage was significant. I mean, the buildings have effectively been toppled. And that's the largest earthquake that Taiwan has experienced since 1999. Here in California, the El Centro Imperial County area experienced a swarm of earthquakes on February 12th, the largest of which was 4.8. But the significance was really that there was a swarm of 20 earthquakes registering 3.0 magnitude or greater, and they had 13 earthquakes in 25 minutes, which is really hard on your communities, having been through a swarm of earthquakes in Contra Costa counties some 25 or 30 years ago. And finally, as we have all heard, there was an earthquake in, of all things, New Jersey last week. And right next to a solar eclipse, it seems like the world is changing. We are fortunate this morning that our commissioner, Dr. Miyamoto, is going to tell us a little bit about what's been happening in Japan and the work he's been doing there. And I see that he is with us virtually. Good morning. And I'm going to hand it off to you, Dr. Miyamoto.
Yeah, thanks so much, Cindy. Let me kind of share the screen, if I may. Get the couple sizes so you can kind of see. Is that okay with you? Let's see here. Share screen. Okay. Just talk about 5 minutes here. Let's see, put them there. You can see okay? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, so I want to just give you a quick update. So Noto Peninsula, it's actually at the pretty remote area of Japan, and earthquake happened in January 1st. And it's a pretty unfortunate because generally, you know, first is the very sacred day for Japan, and all the family members visiting back to the families and so on. So it was really shocking for them, and I was there actually. And earthquake was 7.6, and affected the it's essentially the Japan Sea. It's kind of central part of Japan and west of it. It killed 241 people, injured about 1,500 people, and it's about 9,000 buildings that collapsed. Now, their building types are something similar to what we see here, many of residential buildings actually, and they are made of wood and some older construction, and those are affected quite a bit, and it caused about 10,000 people homeless. But on top of that, something we didn't see in other earthquakes like Taiwan, here you see extensive fire damages. The reason is in Taiwan, most of our construction is concrete, and versus in Japan is wood construction, just like we see in California. So those are typical damage you see. Something we see here too, the older construction, the wood construction with a soft story. And landslides. this actually really this prevent the rescue and urban search and rescue, and also the providing food and water to a remote area for first week or so. And many villages is the isolated, and that was a very difficult for them. However, one thing Japan do really well is they expect the each community and each family and each individual to be ready. So they had the access to food and water for the at least couple weeks or so. So all of them. So that really helpful. That really keep the governmental agencies to focus on what the damage is, rather than try to help the people all over the places. So that's the expectation they usually use. Now, so there's the about 17 different simultaneous fire locations, and especially some certain area. This Wajima city, it's burned in a couple hundred buildings actually, and most of the fire damage originated from this old electrical wiring and the gas and so on. Now, so this is a fairly small area, right? If this happened in a larger area, like say Tokyo or LA, you're gonna see that the very extensive fire damage. So it's the fire after earthquake, something we should really start looking in California. I think it's very critical. That's about it.
Thank you very much. Any questions for our Commissioner Miyamoto? With me here in the room. Anyone of our commissioners on Zoom? Thank you, and thank you for your work around the world to try to make our community safer from the results of earthquakes. So we look forward to hearing more from you as we go forward over the years.
Thank you.
It's now time for the roll call.
Chair Silva,
Here.
Vice Chair Rodriguez, represented by Allison Kusick.
Here.
We have Commissioner Portantino, represented by Astrid Hokoban.
Here.
We have Representative Commissioner Ida Claire. Present. Commissioner De La Cruz,
Here.
Commissioner Garnes. Commissioner Ward, represented by Lori Nazura. Here. Commissioner Kim Lopez,
Here.
Representative Irina Brosman. Here. Commissioner McGowan,
Here.
Commissioner Miyamoto,
Yep.
Commissioner Rabbit, and Commissioner Wells.
Here.
Roll calls here. Everybody's present.
Thank you very much, Tom. Next item on our agenda is public comment for items on the agenda this morning. We have a lot of items on the agenda. If you're a member of the public here in the meeting room in Sacramento, I will call on you first, but you're going to need to let me know by raising your hand. If you are on Zoom and you want to speak on this item, please use the raised hand feature available in Zoom to indicate that you would like to speak. I will turn first to those of us here in the room. And I see no one with a raised hand. Tanya or Trinity, does anyone in the public virtually have a raised hand? Thank you very much. Then I will close this item on the agenda and move to the approval of our January 11th, 2024 meeting minutes. I assume everyone read them. And do we have any corrections? I do have two corrections. They are minor. I was not in the meeting during a couple of the votes, so I have to be removed from the vote count. Any other corrections or additions to the January 11th, 2024 meeting minutes? And I will entertain a motion to approve as corrected. Second. We have a motion and a second to approve the January 11th, 2024 meeting minutes as corrected. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say no. Do I have to do a roll call vote because we have commissioners on virtually? I'm looking at the attorney. She's looking at me. For a vote like this, it's fine. All right, then. Good vote.
Chair Silva,
Aye.
Vice Chair Rodriguez, represented by Allison Kustik. Aye. Commissioner Portantino, represented by Astrid Kokobon. Commissioner Claire.
Aye.
Commissioner Garner. Commissioner De La Cruz.
Aye.
Commissioner Ward, represented by Lori Nazara.
Aye.
Commissioner Kim Lopez,
Aye.
Representative Irina Brosnan. Aye. Commissioner McGowan,
Aye.
Commissioner Miyamoto,
Aye.
Commissioner Rabbit.
Say aye.
And Commissioner Wells.
Aye.
All right, motion passes as amended.
And let the record show that Commissioner Rabbit has joined the meeting and he did vote on the meeting minutes in case. January 11th. Just in case. Next item on the agenda is the presentation and discussion of a proposal for the it's going to say brick. And I'm going to turn it over to the Building Code Plus updates. I will turn it to the Executive Director.
Thank you very much, Chair Silva. So you all might remember at our last meeting, we asked for permission to submit an application for the FEMA grant, which is Building Resilient Infrastructure in Communities, Building Code Plus Up grant. At that time, we let you know that it was a $300,000 grant. Our local match, which is 25%, would be in the SSC's in-kind staff time. It was to evaluate the current code provisions and their effectiveness to meet generally accepted seismic safety standards for mobile homes, and that we would be working closely with HCD on all aspects of the project. You approved us to move forward with that application right before we were getting, next slide please, right before we were getting ready to submit the application, which was a short few days after the meeting. We received some additional RFI bids that we had put out for the testing that we were going to be doing that came in substantially higher than expected. We had received one RFI bid at the time we spoke with you. In addition, we had some general technical scope additions for soil testing to provide recommendations for soil anchors. So we went ahead and submitted the grant for $450,000. It includes that staff time, which would still adhere to the 25% local cost share. If the commission is unwilling to approve the $450,000 and would like to roll it back to the $300,000 grant, we can do so. But at this time, we're asking for approval to have that remain as a $450,000 grant to allow us to do the general tech or the geotech scoping and soil anchors, as well as to adhere to potential increased costs for the bids for the testing. So that is what we were asking. We were asking to move forward with a $450,000 grant instead of a $300,000 grant. Again, the in-kind time, 25% will be in staff costs. Staff time.
Thank you. Can I ask staff to keep the slide with the main points visible? And I'll turn now to the commission to see if anyone has any questions on watching the slides all around here.
I have a question. Can you just recap when the deadline is to submit, when we will just be hearing what the process? Sure. So we have already actually submitted the application. It was due a week after we had our meeting. And so we did submit that at the 450,000, knowing that we could come here and ask, and if it wasn't acceptable, we could roll it back. But if we hadn't submitted it at 450, we wouldn't have been able to go in the future and ask for the increased. We expect that we should hear sometime late this summer about whether it's gotten the first level of approval, but again, we don't have control over it. Thank you.
And just to affirm that the 25% cost share requirement will still be, we will still be able to meet that requirement with staff time.
We do believe so.
Commissioner Rabbit.
And just so I understand, the additional cost is in relationship to the additional geotechnical scope, and that will include different soil types, so they can have a standard
That is
approach to the
Yeah.
acres.
correct. That is our intent to at least have some minimal level of acceptance for soil types. And then also that the bids for the actual testing came in higher. We had received one bid prior to the application, several came in after the application, after we spoke here, that were higher than what we received.
Do any of our commissioners who are joining us virtually have questions for staff? I don't see any hands raised, but everyone from our staff that.
I have a question.
Commissioner Missouri, or Representative Missouri.
Do you, have you been assigned, like a technical assistance, rep from, the Calories Recovery Division? Is there someone that like can help walking side by side with you as you go through this process?
From HMGP,
Yes.
yes, they've been assisting us.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from our commissioners? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion, which if you can, we will see it on screen, which
I move to accept the approval of 450.
Second.
The brick.
and second, we have a roll call vote, please.
Chair Sylvan,
Aye.
Vice Chair Rodriguez, represented by Alan Kustick. Aye. Commissioner Portantino, represented by Astrid Hokoban. Commissioner Claire. Aye. Commissioner Garnes.
Aye.
Commissioner De La Cruz.
Aye.
Commissioner represented by Lori Nazara. Aye. Commissioner Kim Lopez,
Aye.
Representative Irina Brosman. Aye. Commissioner McGowan,
Aye.
Commissioner Miyamoto,
Aye.
Commissioner Rabbit,
Aye.
Commissioner Wells.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Next item on our agenda is a request from Southern California Edison for a letter of support regarding their seismic mitigation upgrades and alternative staff.
Thank you. So you all may recall back in October of last year that SoCal Edison came to us and spoke at some length about their mitigation program. They do have a general rate change filing in with the CPUC, and a lot of that rate change is specific to their mitigation program. They came and asked if we would be willing to provide a letter of support for that rate change. We let them know we do not support rate changes specifically, but we would discuss whether or not we would put forward a letter of support for their mitigation program. So you should have a copy. It came earlier this week, I believe, of that letter. In that letter, we do specify that we are in support of generally seismic retrofitting for critical infrastructure. We do not weigh in on how those changes are made or how those mitigation efforts are made. And
Very much. Do I have any questions from commissioners regarding the letter? Anyone joining us virtually? Commissioner Kim Lopez.
So I support the letter of support, but just a question for any utility agency. What is the criteria that we go through? This is case by case when we do these letters of support, because there's different mechanisms of rate increase for different types of utilities that are public agencies. So is this something that any utility can ask for from the commission?
Certainly, anybody can ask. When they do ask, we will not provide a support of a specific rate increase, and we do not specify how somebody should go about doing that. But if we do have others that come to us as a request, it will be brought before the commission, and the commission will decide, but we will draft a support letter that speaks to general mitigation efforts and our support of general mitigation efforts, and then the commission would make a determination about whether they wanted to support that.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions from commissioners or comments? I would make the general comment that I think it's important that we are supporting all of these agencies that have so much critical infrastructure across the state, even if it's just to remind everybody in the public that you cannot assume that infrastructure will last forever. Any final questions or comments from commissioners? Then I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to support the letter. Second, Rabbit.
We have a motion from Commissioner Wells and a second from Commissioner Rabbit to support the letter. We'll have a roll call vote, please.
Chair Silva,
Aye.
Vice Chair Rodriguez, represented by Allison Custic, and I. Commissioner Fortentino, represented by Astrid Kokoban. Commissioner Claire. Aye. Commissioner Garnes.
Aye.
Commissioner De La Cruz.
Aye.
Commissioner Ward, represented by Lori Missouri. Aye. Commissioner Tim Lopez,
Aye.
Representative Irina Brosnan. Commissioner McGowan,
Aye.
Commissioner Miyamoto,
Aye.
Commissioner Rabbit,
Aye.
Commissioner Wells.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda, item number 7, is a consideration of the report on the earthquake sequence, which was prepared over the last year and a half, really, when we look and consider it. Following the Ferndale earthquake sequence that occurred in late 2022 and early 2023. I hope I have my years correct. It's 2020s are driving me crazy. I can't keep them all straight. And I'll just start by thanking Commissioner De La Cruz and Representative Missouri for their help with staff on this report. So I will turn it over to staff for presentation and discussion, and I hope you all have read it.
Thank you very much. So we wanted to take a moment to acknowledge all of the assistance we had with this report. I believe we got approval to do it at the end of July, at our last meeting in July. We worked extensively with the city of Rio Dell and Humboldt County, so thank you very much, Mayor Garnes, for all of your staff's time and the staff of Humboldt County. We also worked significantly with Callaway-S Recovery and Seismic Hazard Branch. So thank you, Deputy Director Missouri, for that assistance. The California Geological Survey also provided us with some assistance, as well as a few others that are mentioned in the report. And again, as Chair Silva said, thank you to the ad hoc committee, Representative Missouri, Commissioner De La Cruz, for your assistance and time. We couldn't have done it without everybody's assistance. And then that is behind there is the mural that sits in Geodel. I think it's a lovely piece of art, so we wanted to highlight that as well. Next slide, please. Just to have you all understand the process, the staff put together the first draft, then we worked with the ad hoc committee. Then we did a Callaway-S as well as external review. Then it went back to the ad hoc committee, and then it went up for more Callaway-S review. At one point, we did take one of the ad hoc committee members off and put on Chair Silva to assist us with looking and editing the draft. Thank you very much for all of your time and efforts there. And then it was reviewed again, and finally it reached you all. So next slide, please. So we have 6 priority recommendations. They are listed on the next couple slides. And we do have 27 recommendations in general. But the priority recommendations are here, not in priority order. So we'll just quickly go through them. One is to develop and update a local emergency operations plan and drill in coordination with the local operational area. These recommendations, by the way, are in general, not necessarily specific to Rio Dell, but for all communities like Rio Dell and others to assist them before hopefully a next earthquake. The next recommendation is to educate residents and businesses on the value of funding sources for seismic retrofits and other mitigation activities. That seems to be an ongoing issue here in California, people either not having funding or unaware of the funding opportunities. Identifying local non-governmental organizations, NGOs, and community-based organizations, CBOs, and establish a plan with them before a disaster. Next slide, please. This next one is encouraging FEMA to update the eligibility criteria for federal assistance programs to small rural communities like those of Rio Dell that experience social vulnerability or economic disadvantage have equitable access to federal disaster funding. This is specific in this case because while 25% of the housing stock and the water system was damaged, the damage did not rise to the level of a federal debt, and so there was no federal funding coming to Rio Dell. The next recommendation is as a stopgap to the unavailability of federal assistance, to work with the state to add an individual assistance funding program. And the last one on the slide is to support long-term disaster resilience by having a plan to address post-disaster social and not in priority order on the slide, with 27 recommendations in all. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, our recommendations aim to bolster the preparedness, mitigation, response, and recovery capabilities of Rio Dell and similar communities facing seismic risks. Challenges are always seen in response and ongoing recovery efforts. It gives us opportunities to learn before the next earthquake. And heeding those lessons, we're hopeful that communities may better withstand future events and facilitate a more equitable and sustainable recovery process. Moving forward, we'd like to see all stakeholders at all levels, local, state, and federal, collaborate effectively for prioritize investments in disaster preparedness and resilience. Next slide, please.
Thank you very much. So this was a significant amount of work to help us coalesce around recommendations that are full one in response to what happened in the Ferndale and Rio Dell area just over a year ago. So again, I want to thank the ad hoc committee that worked on this. Comments from commissioners or questions? Commissioner Burns.
I would just like to thank the commission for just being present, for coming to Rio Dell and supporting us and doing this. The recommendations are clear and they're important that everyone, and she said not just Rio Dell, look at and take to heart, because those are the things that you need to do to be prepared. We were in one way prepared, but in a huge way not. So these are things that now, we've talked about, and we are in the motion in the, of getting drills going and doing the things that will be helpful so that next time we are more fully prepared. Because it's an amazing thing that when you're like, oh, my radios don't work. These are things don't work that you need to make sure they're always charged. You need to make sure that, you have these backups in place. So I just appreciate everything that the commission has done, and I appreciate the recommendation. So thank you.
And thank you for being so gracious in accepting the recommendations, because sometimes you want to say to yourself, well, wait a minute, can't plan for this, can't plan for this. We were planned as best we could, but when you have it happen and then be open to what you could do differently, hopefully today and going forward. That's really significant. Other comments and questions? Representative Missouri.
One of the things that I really like about this report is comprehensiveness. So if you look at the recommendations, there are recommendations that touch all levels of government. So the local government, state recommendations, federal recommendations, then for private citizens, homeowners, and also non-governmental organizations in the community. So there's really something in here for every possible aspect of the community and the state as a whole. So I appreciate that kind of comprehensive 360 look at the issue, at the event.
Thank you. Commissioner Kim Lopez, I'm going to come to you when I just check everybody here in the room. Other comments from the commissioners here in the room?
I have a question. The federal funding piece, that Rio Del didn't reach the level that would have been required to receive funding. I mean, that's definitely a big problem. So I'm glad that you improved that. And I'm curious to know the way that the eligibility is currently determined. Does it just go off of amount of destruction, or is it population based, or what is that right now that really prevents some smaller areas from getting the funding?
So there is a specific threshold for the state of California. Right now, that's around $70 million. So at the time, initially, it was about an $8 million they thought. Now it's about $40 million total damage. It still didn't rise to the threshold. And then for individual assistance, there's a whole nother process. It also didn't meet that threshold.
The monetary thresholds. Okay, thank you.
What I found interesting in reading the drafts of the report was just the recognition that because California is a big state with some pockets of large economic wealth, that it drives up that formula, that minimum threshold, such that it's almost impossible for communities like Rio Del and Ferndale. But let's just go to also communities that suffer from wildfires that are remote. They're never going to rise to that level. And so the recognition of what is going to be needed. I was at a meeting of the National League of Cities about a month ago in Washington, D.C., and I sit on the Housing and Community Development Committee. And I raised it with the National League of Cities staff as an issue that needs to be addressed. And they said they're hearing the same thing from small communities in Florida and hurricanes. So it's not earthquake specific or wildfire specific. It's any disaster with remote communities or isolated on the coast of, the Gulf Coast. They're still remote, they're still small, and it doesn't rise to meet the minimum levels. So it's a national problem, not just a state or a local problem here in California. So
And it's been brought up by a senator out of Illinois, Durban? No. Durban?
Urban and
He's brought it up because of small communities in that area. So I think that, like you were saying, it's a national problem and it covers all disasters. But because a small community, the whole entire, I've said Humboldt County could have just been completely gone. Now we have Cal Poly, so that might not count, but we could be completely gone and still not rise to that level. And one house in Malibu or a couple of houses in Malibu are gone. It's like, oh, done. So, but it is being raised at the National Cal Cities at the Senate level. So people are looking at it, but it's still, hasn't gotten there yet. But I think the awareness now and people are actually making the effort to make it a high priority.
The National Emergency Management Association has provided public comment to particular rulemaking for FEMA and has brought this issue up as well.
This is only getting exacerbated by the insurance industry's departure from,
Yes.
because when they take their insurance out of the issue and picture.
It actually makes it easier because for the individual assistant, it's uninsured losses. So that, I mean, it's not a good thing.
It's easier if you have a magnificent disaster. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Question, first of all, very thorough report, easy to read, which is, I appreciate. Submitting, is there a process to submit this analysis to FEMA? I'm like, does FEMA have a process where they get these reports and see how it impacts the community to understand? Like, is there any? We make a recommendation, so how do we get it to them other than the method that we've discussed? I'm just curious.
Thank you for that question. We were recently speaking about that, and there is a new office in FEMA, Office of the Rural Advocate, I believe it's called. So I think there's an opportunity for the commission to submit the report and some requests for follow-up to that office. It is a brand new office. I understand it's office of one. But it does give us the next step if the commission is interested in moving forward with that.
Commissioner Kim Lopez, you've had your hand raised.
Yes, and I also appreciate the work that went into the developing the recommendation. And along the lines of what we've been talking about, what specific, or maybe for the next meeting, I'd like to learn more about what the commission can do specifically to really try to push the two elements, the FEMA and the stopgap funding by the state, because, you know, as we talked about, it's communities beyond, including, but not just the rural communities. So what can the commission do to further advocate for those two areas that I think are extremely critical to most communities in California? And how do we hold everybody accountable, just so that we could see if any of the recommendation in terms of FEMA and the state funding have been able to move the needle?
Thank you. We will take your comments and come back at the next meeting and let you know what possible steps could be taken.
And if I could clarify on the stopgap state funding, the state does have the ability, absent whatever FEMA does, in a declared emergency to offer what's called public assistance. So that's money to local government to fix infrastructure, roads, buildings, bridges, et cetera. What the state lacks is an individual assistance program, which goes to the homeowners whose homes have been damaged. So, and that specifically is referenced in this particular report.
Commissioner Rabbit.
Not to beat a dead horse, but the financial threshold piece, I think, is so vitally important. In our county, I think, since 2010, we've had 19 emergencies. And those federally declared. I remember talking to FEMA about that at one point in time. And I think the continuing resolution process that DC has been in also prohibits new appropriations beyond what's already in basic budget, which is that threshold. So to be through that threshold and have it lower is going to take it something beyond a continuing resolution and or the will of the Senate House to deal with it. And unfortunately, what happens is it's dealt with by the individual representatives that have a disaster in their district, but it all comes at different times. And there's no force to make that change. But having so many disasters at the local level really goes to tell us that you have to really watch your reserves, obviously. Every day, these things do happen. That you can cover your expenses for the time being. It's also at a time when the recovery is also going to be bringing in less revenue total. So very difficult times trying to work through those things financially.
Other comments or questions?
Is there anything that we need to do as the commission to, if we need to approve this, but to send it to the office, do we need to have that agenda, you know, the new rural advocacy office, do we need to motion to do that? Do we need to agendize that? Is there a way to, or can we just do it? I mean,
Daisy, do we need the commission to actually make a motion, or can they just direct staff to move forward?
I think it'd be better if this was considered as a motion.
Can we do that motion now, or does it need to get the next meeting?
Can we direct staff to bring this discussion back at the next meeting for really a thorough assessment of, I won't chair, but a thorough discussion on how do we communicate this and what avenues, what channels we want to use? Is it a single FEMA rural advocate? Better line up now, or is it calling the Wall Street Journal and saying, you know, we destroy communities continually and don't recover from them, there's going to be a lot more havoc in our communities.
If it's a matter for additional consideration and discussion, I would recommend that it be moved into the next meeting and agendized as such.
Okay, so I'll make the motion to direct staff to agendize this to continuing discussion at the next meeting of the commission.
second,
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Chair Silva,
Aye.
Vice Chair Rodriguez, represented by Allison Custic. Aye. Commissioner Portantino, represented by Astrid Hugovan.
Aye.
Commissioner Claire.
Aye.
Commissioner Garnes. Commissioner De La Cruz.
Aye.
Commissioner Ward, represented by Lori Nazara.
Aye.
Commissioner Kim Lopez,
Aye.
Representative Irina Brosnan.
Aye.
Commissioner McGowan,
Aye.
Commissioner Miyamoto,
Aye.
Commissioner Rabbit,
Aye.
Commissioner Wells.
Aye.
Motion passes to the next
Now, we
meeting.
still have one other action to take today, which is to receive the report and direct staff regarding any final edits, and I'll turn it back to staff for comment on that.
Thank you. Yes, so if we have any additional edits, please send them our way. And then once they are completed, we would finalize the report and put it up on our website. So it would be available on the site. The edits are taken care of. Before we move on to that requested consideration, I want to take one moment to thank the staff, particularly Trinity, who we were kind of a 1-2 person show in completing this report. And then Chris also helped significantly in pulling together some of the maps and things that you saw at the very end in the appendix, looking at the red and yellow tags. So thank you very much. It was a large undertaking for 1 and 2 people, and then with Chris's assistance. So we very much appreciate all of your help. Thank you very much. And then the team in general did read over it several times. So I appreciate the rest of the team's assistance with ensuring that we had a product that we were proud to put out. So thank you.
So by non-substantive changes, we don't mean rewriting sentences or paragraphs or adding new content. It's really if we found a typo or if there's a hanging headline at the bottom of the page that really needs to be reconnected to its content, turn it in. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved, Brad.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Rabbit and a second by Commissioner Claire to authorize the staff to make any non-substantive changes, edits, fixes for the report and to consider the report concluded until we discuss again at the next meeting. Roll call vote, please.
Chair Silva,
Aye.
Vice Chair Rodriguez, represented by Allison Custic. Aye. Commissioner Portantino, represented by Astrid Hugovan.
Aye.
Commissioner Claire. Aye. Commissioner Garnes.
Aye.
Commissioner De La Cruz.
Aye.
Commissioner Ward, represented by Lori Nazara. Aye. Commissioner Tim Lopez,
Aye.
Representative Irina Brosnan,
Aye.
Commissioner McGowan,
Aye.
Commissioner Miyamoto,
Aye.
Commissioner Rabbit,
Aye.
Commissioner Wells.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, everyone. Next item on the agenda is item 8, which is earthquakes and climate change workshop, and I will hand it to staff.
Thank you very much. We are not breaking, we'll break afterwards. Next slide, please. So this agenda item is an interest of us putting together an earthquake and climate change workshop. There's a lot of work being done in this area, and we're interested in pulling together a workshop with CGS and USGS with looking at a number of different opportunities and topics regarding climate change and earthquakes, and then also multi-perils. So it would be a multidisciplinary collaboration among earthquake scientists, engineers, and climate scientists. This information is really good for communities from a multi-hazard approach for resilience to natural disasters. We're looking to align earthquake issues with California's climate goals and help in improving resilience of communities to the cascading multi-hazard sequences and events that can happen from changing climate. Next slide, please. So our target audience is researchers and engineers, all levels of government partners that fund and formulate policies on climate and earthquakes. Climate and earthquake hazard research, as well as preparedness, mitigation, and resilience planning. It would be an online event. The date and time would be determined. We would be sharing costs with CGS and USGS, pardon me. The anticipated cost is about $1,600. There is sufficient funds in our budget to accommodate those costs. And we have a number of potential topics, none of which are highlighted here, but just to give you an idea. One would be uncertainties of earthquake and climate model data set as they impact risk assessment for community lifelines, and the quantification of earthquake-induced liquefaction, landslide, and fire-falling earthquake and tsunami risk, incorporating the latest climate data set on sea level rise, fire, precipitation, and wind conditions. That's a lot of words for a lot of big topics. These would just be a few of the topics that would be under consideration, but we would work with the partners here as CGS and USGS. We've already been in contact with them. They are interested in moving forward if the commission is interested in pursuing a workshop.
Questions from commissioners?
I'll make a comment for Vice Chair Rodriguez, not necessarily a question, but just that this is something that he cares very deeply about, of how can the state best prepare for two disasters at once. You know, we're so often completely overwhelmed by a wildfire or a landslide or even pandemic, and then throw an earthquake on top of that. What happens? What does the state do? So I'm sure that many of you have heard me speak about this in the past, and this is certainly something that he supports very deeply and thinks is very important for our state to be focusing on. So thank you for bringing this forward.
I have a quick question. Given the long list of potential topics that would be covered in this workshop, how many days are you anticipating for this? I'm hyperbolic on.
It's unclear at the moment, because we would want to work with CGS and USGS to see the list of topics. And then once we went from there, we would determine, but I anticipate it would be no more than 2 days, possibly 1 day.
And you would be looking at a structure for that that would encourage or facilitate many people to participate. It might not be 2 days back to back. It could be 2-hour sessions over a series of days.
That is yet to be determined, but that is a consideration.
Is there a report that comes out of the discussion at the end? I mean, I'm looking at the cost, and here's who's the lead, someone generally takes the lead or one agency does and do we know next steps beyond that?
The next step would be approval by the commission, and then we would work with the three agencies to determine who is gonna actually take the lead. At this point, USGS has done things like this in the past, so we'd be working with them, to determine how to best move forward. They have a lot more experience than we do, with that. But I certainly think there would be something that would come out of it. Not quite sure what that would be yet. A lot to TBD.
Commissioner Garza, I do see you, Commissioner Kim Lopez.
I was just gonna ask, I see the target audience, would the commission be present? Online, of course, but will we be present, or is this something that's gonna happen and then we would just get some kind of feedback out of that?
We would certainly alert you about when it was, and you are welcome to attend as part of the public. If you wanted to attend as the commission, we would have to publicly notice that.
Other
Thank you.
questions here in the meeting room? Commissioner Kim Lopez.
I completely support this. My only question was, would members of the commission, if they so desired, because I have some questions and thoughts that I think would be helpful for this workshop, certainly some of the information that I like to see, would there be an opportunity for us to speak with staffs as you're planning this with these other agencies?
Input and thoughts welcome. Other questions or comments? Then I will entertain a motion.
I had a comments.
We have a motion from Commissioner Rabbit and a second from Commissioner Miyamoto to approve and direct staff to pursue this comment. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I should have a question.
I couldn't see. We have Commissioner Miyamoto. I am so sorry. We'll hold your motion.
That's okay, that's okay. I just had a little comments on that. I think it's a fantastic initiative to do this, especially the I mean, evidence tells us that the biggest threat we have is fire after earthquake. That's evidence over the places. And I think that's probably at least part of it, things we are prepared for. And I think especially climate change components of a dry weather and drought, could happen on the down the road, and a combination of the wind event and earthquake, it could be, it just gonna be something we have not even prepared yet. And there are a lot of initiative happen in Japan, which is the very cost-effective way to reduce that kind of impact. I think things like that can just think through it. It could make a huge impact, by the way. So I think this kind of initiative is fantastic. That's it.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Rabbit. Who would like to second the motion? Commissioner
I second.
Miyamoto, can I ask you to second?
Yes, I second.
Roll call vote, please.
Chair Silva,
Aye.
Vice Chair Rodriguez, represented by Allison Kusick. Aye. Commissioner Portantino, represented by Astrid Hogaban. Commissioner Claire. Aye. Commissioner Barnes.
Aye.
Commissioner De La Cruz.
Aye.
Commissioner Ward, represented by Lori Missouri.
Aye.
Commissioner Kim Lopez,
Aye.
Representative Irina Brosman. Aye. Commissioner McGowan,
Aye.
Commissioner Miyamoto,
Aye.
Commissioner Rabbit.
Aye.
Commissioner Wells.
Aye.
Motion passes.
So we are moving very well through our agenda today. It is now time for a 10-minute break, after which we will hear from the two reports, the one from Cal State University and the other from the UC system on their AB 100 reports and the rest of our agenda. So it is, we'll say it's 10 o'clock now. We will reconvene at 10 minutes after 10.
Oh.
Good morning. Are we ready to start?
They're not interpreting for us. I don't think. We were on mute. I apologize. We are back in action.
Oh,
Yes.
sorry. We gave you a lovely introduction. We thanked you for joining us and for your team working with us to put together this AB 100 report. We look forward to hearing from you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. My name is Andrew Tyson. I'm the Emergency and Continuity Manager for System-Wide Emergency Management. I'm joined here by Jack Anderson, our Chief of Planning and Design with Capital Planning, Design and Construction. We're both with the Chancellor's Office for the CSU, the California State University System. The CSU, just a little bit about us, for those that don't know, we are the largest public university system in the nation. We have 23 universities and 7 off-campus centers around the state of California. We educate nearly 460,000 students annually, have over 4 million alumni. Nearly 1 in 10 residents of the state is a CSU graduate. The CSU also employs 63,000 staff and faculty, creates more than 200,000 jobs across a wide variety of fields and professions. Now, any background of the CSU wouldn't be replete if we didn't talk about the Northridge quake, which really did inform our approach to earthquake mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. Just a little bit of background. Northridge was a 6.7 magnitude earthquake that struck in the early morning of January 17th, 1994. Roads and utilities were severely disrupted as far as 85 miles away, though primarily in the San Fernando Valley area. The epicenter of the earthquake was just 1 mile from CSU Northridge, at the time our 4th largest CSU of just 20 with 25,000 students. CSU Northridge was the primary employer in the San Fernando Valley with over 100 buildings across its campus. Within 40 seconds of the Northridge quake, CSUN experienced more extensive damage than that experienced by any major public U.S. university at the time. Every building at CSUN was damaged during the quake, and a half dozen were ultimately demolished and replaced. 3,200 students were displaced from student housing. Academics were severely impacted due to a damaged data center and lost or inaccessible course materials and classroom space. Years of research data were also lost. The response from other campuses, both within and outside of the CSU system, was immediate and immense. 17 campuses of the CSU sent police officers, custodians, groundskeepers, and more to assist in recovery. Course materials were provided through interlibrary loans. Other campuses provided facilities for class registration and lab animal housing, and a special FEMA team was assembled to help coordinate with that agency. Through tremendous effort, CSUN was able to reopen its campus by February 14th. Temporary construction and donated modular buildings were set up. Instruction was made continuous 6 days a week from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Ride sharing and public transportation assisted those coming to campus, and telecommuting, which was a pretty novel idea at the time, was incentivized. Remember, this was 1994, well before Zoom. The recovery costs, both in the short and long term, were considerable. By early February, CSUN had over $12 million in accrued costs, including $3 million in instructional equipment rentals, $5 million in structural evaluations, and $840,000 in demolition costs and debris removal. The entire recovery effort was over $406 million, which is the equivalent to $757 million today, making it the costliest disaster to impact a major public higher education institution in the country at the time. It took more than 13 years to fully replace and repair the damages to CSUN. This year marked the 30th anniversary of Northridge, and a remembrance was held on February 3rd, sponsored by CSUN as well as the Earthquake Country Alliance. It also featured a screening of the documentary Quake Heroes, which highlights the heroism of responders during that response to that incident. In 1995, President Clinton made an appearance at CSUN to remark on the recovery and rebuilding effort and to help memorialize the incident. Our system-wide emergency management and continuity director, Jenny Novak, presented on the legacy of the earthquake just last year at the UC Merced Safety Conference. And also in 2016, when Jenny was the emergency manager at CSUN, she created Beat the Quake. Beat the Quake is a fun and educational earthquake-themed escape room. It challenges students to find clues for earthquake preparedness and create a disaster preparedness kit before the clock times out. Beat the Quake received the 2017 International Association of Emergency Managers Recipient Award for Public Awareness, and it's been shared with many other campuses, including most recently UC Irvine, who put it on in 2023 during a safety and preparedness event. Now, our CSUs regularly engage their students, faculty, and staff in earthquake preparedness education and outreach of various kinds. The chief one, of course, is the Great Shakeout. The annual Great Shakeout has seen 83% of our campuses participate as registered participants for the past 10 years. 8 of our campuses have been with that shakeout since the beginning in 2008. The CSUs use this day as a chance to have their campus communities practice drop, cover, and hold drills, test their emergency notification systems, conduct seminars and tabling events on earthquake readiness. Many create their own campus-specific outreach materials, as seen on this slide. Taking drop, cover, and hold selfies is also frequently encouraged and shared around the campus. Even during COVID, most campuses held virtual emergency response drop, cover, and hold drills. In 2023, Cal OES conducted its earthquake awareness tour to encourage earthquake awareness and preparedness. And this tour included its earthquake simulation trailer, capable of simulating up to a magnitude 7.0 quake for those brave enough to take a ride on it. Of the 7 cities OES marked for the tour, 2 of our CSU campuses, San Francisco State and Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, were included. Now, while each university has its own emergency manager, the CSU system also has a system-wide emergency support team, which activates in the event of a regional system-wide incident that might impact multiple campuses, such as a major earthquake. The SWEST, as we call it, provides support and coordinates information to responding universities in such an incident. Our team holds system-wide situational awareness calls, produces system-wide situation reports and updates, including to our policy team at the Chancellor's office. The SWEST activates virtually through a virtual emergency operations center and collects campus information from across the state. Examples of information that we collect from our campuses include their operational status, whether they're open, closed, or in some sort of hybrid status, whether they've activated their EOCs or not, what their housing and instructional status is, campus impacts, etc. This information is then both displayed visually, as you can see in the slide here, but also shared in those situation-wide updates and reports. The Chino Hills Shaker exercise was our first test of the system-wide emergency support team. It was conducted in June of 2022. It was primarily in-person functional, but also featured virtual coordination as well. It was designed in part with help from our campus emergency managers. This exercise featured an earthquake scenario impacting the Cal Poly Pomona campus, and it also included our CSU Seismic Review Board, about which Jack will talk more shortly. Last year, as the system-wide emergency support team was already active monitoring Tropical Storm Hillary, we had an incident that we affectionately termed the Hurricane, where a 5.1 magnitude earthquake struck Ojai, just 22 miles from our Channel Islands campus, while we were actually in a planning session meeting monitoring the tropical storm. Observing cracks at the Channel Islands campus, our seismic response protocol was activated, and the seismic review board was deployed Monday, 8/21, in order to go and investigate that incident. Finally, our campuses, they all frequently utilize earthquake scenarios when exercising their emergency operations centers. Sometimes this is done independently, just on the campus. Sometimes it's done in conjunction with the SWEST, as we mentioned, and such as in the Chino Hills Shaker exercise. Sometimes it's done with other agency partners in the area. For instance, in 2023, our Channel Islands campus held a full day, full scale post-earthquake shelter exercise in conjunction with the county and other response agencies in their area. In 2022, Sonoma State held a full-day multi-departmental exercise on their campus based around a 6.2 magnitude Rogers Creek fault earthquake situation. This featured a full-day exercise, a simulation cell, and other departments as mentioned. San Jose State also utilized an earthquake scenario in their EOC exercise in 2022. In 2021, CSUN held a virtual exercise with their policy group based around an earthquake scenario. And the same year, our East Bay campus held a 2-day tabletop with the housing department that focused on how to house students displaced by an earthquake. And with that, I will turn it over to Jack to speak more about our seismic response protocol.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to present today. Andrew, next slide, please. I'm going to talk a little bit about our seismic review board and our seismic policy. We've established the seismic review board back in 1992. Their focus is to provide acceptable level of earthquake safety for the students, employees, and the public. The board is comprised of a chair, a vice chair, and 7 independent engineers. So I want to emphasize that our board is not, they are not employees. What they are, they're basically on contract with us to provide these design review services. And there are other functions that go along with it. 6 of the structural engineers are assigned to specific campuses. What that means is we have maybe 3 or 4 of the campuses are assigned to one seismic peer reviewer, one seismic review board member. But this allows the board member to actually become very, very knowledgeable about the conditions, whether it be soil, fault proximity, or just the existing buildings in general. In essence, the board member becomes integrated really well into the campus, knows the buildings, knows the facilities people. And for every new building or any new project for us, that's over $1 million, which is our major cap threshold, the seismic peer reviewer will do a peer review. Next slide, please. So in essence, what we depend on a lot is what we call the CSU seismic requirements. It's a document that was first drafted in the year 2000. It's currently about 63 pages. We update it generally every 3 to 4 years, and we just went through a major update at the end of last year. Key objectives is to provide acceptable level of earthquake safety for CSU buildings. And this is new buildings and existing buildings. It applies to the new construction and any renovation. Independent peer reviews. This is not a code review, but it's more of a review for best practices. They do consider code, but oftentimes our reviews are actually in excess or above code requirements. And then the feasibility of all construction projects that basically when we have an existing building, we're looking intently at the building in terms of its performance and the ability to render the seismic safety. Next slide, please. Part of the design, the seismic review board members, and part of their duties is to respond in the event of an earthquake. Now, we've only had one earthquake, and it was Northridge, where we actually instituted and executed these protocols. But when and if an earthquake occurs, and we always are on alert and looking at it, at some of the MyShake or some of the other notifications, the SRB member will oftentimes, if it's near a particular campus, will usually reach out to the campus. There are 3 points of contact. One is University Police, The other is the what we consider a campus deputy building official. And then the third one is usually the university executive facilities officer. So in essence, we have three main contacts that we go out and basically we assess whether or not we need to deploy either the chair or another board member out to the campus. If and when there is measurable amount of damage, we then institute a protocol where the seismic review board member actually, or the chair, becomes the emergency deputy building official. And if that occurs, in essence, he takes over the duties of the campus deputy building official. And what this allows is, because of the fact that the board members are under the auspice of the chancellor's office, we then can look at the situation objectively in terms of should a building be reoccupied and when that might be able to occur. In essence, we're looking at the damage and we're giving kind of a neutral set of eyes on the campus. The EDBO provides regular updates to me as the building official, and we make a determination on the status of the buildings as they are assessed. We will do an ATC 20 guidelines. We use those guidelines to do the assessments, and we will either, next slide, please. We either red tag, green tag, or yellow tag the buildings. The university police will usually assist us in restricting the occupancy. Again, we've only had one incident, which would be the Northridge quake 32 years ago or so, where we've actually had to institute this protocol. The university administrators cannot overrule basically the EDBO or myself as the building official. Our authority will take precedence during these events. And then what I'd like to do also is maybe kind of rolling into what we do in terms of how we prevent damage for buildings. We have a lot of existing buildings, over 2,100. All of our new buildings are seismically peer reviewed that are major cap projects, which is nearly every one of them. And so from that standpoint, we're pretty confident in the structures that we usually build these days. However, it's always the existing buildings that we always have to take a keen eye on. And I'm going to show three examples here. This example is the Cal Poly Humboldt Theater. It's an arts building, and it was done back in 2017. It was $1 million. This was a pretty light kind of, let's say, seismic upgrade, but it fully met the seismic performance level 4. After we finished, we added bracing, strengthened some columns, added some shear walls. The fixes were pretty easy in terms of the cost. And then we also, in general, we are required to do ADA upgrades as we move. Next slide. The next project here is the Cal Poly Humboldt Library. It was done in 2018. This was a little bit more involved. I think it was finished just about 2 years ago. I think it was an ongoing project for a few years. We did a building retrofit for the seismic. We also did a lot of improvement of fire safety on this one. We added sprinklers to the entire building. Libraries become a big part of what we do. There's some of our older buildings. The nature of the library is changing. It gives us an opportunity to go in and do seismic upgrades. This is Stanislav Library. This is one of our really nice projects that we were very proud of. Full seismic upgrades on this one, fire protection, new building interiors. And then also it gives us an opportunity to do high density file storage for books. And then basically we did a number of upgrades to the roof, and also basically just the entire envelope of the building was looked at. And next slide. And then the last one is, again, it's a library annex at East Bay. It was 3.8 million, and this one was brace frames. We did some column strengthening, and then as normal with all of our seismic upgrades, we use this as an opportunity to do accessibility improvements. And I believe that is the last slide. And
Yes.
thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to speak before you.
So don't run off, because I'm sure members of the commission might have some questions of you all. We'll start here in the commission room, meeting room. Anyone have questions for our presenters? Well, I have a couple of them. You repeated a couple of times that the only time you've been required so far to trigger this committee that goes out is the Northridge earthquake. So does this mean that Sonoma State did not have enough, was not close enough to the Napa earthquake in 2014, or that Cal Poly Humboldt wasn't close enough to the Rio del Ferndale events that occurred in the last year?
So I'm not familiar with the 14, but I am familiar with the Ferndale at Humboldt. In that case, we were in constant communication with the campus. The campus did their assessments, walking through all of their buildings, and they made a determination they had no damage at that time. We have, on my watch, in the last 4 years, we've had 2 times where we've had to deploy the seismic peer reviewer or the seismic review board member, and that was once, I think it was, I want to say it was in July of a couple of years ago at Dominguez Hills. There was a quake that was in Lawndale, I believe, and then also the hurricane that we experienced last year. In both those cases, the seismic board member was deployed, went out and did some initial assessments of some damage that was found. And so it's not that they don't go out there, it's just we don't enact this this protocol of taking the authority as the AHJ back into the chancellor's office. We leave that with the campuses. We've only had to do that during the Northridge quake, where we had to assess every single building, not all of the damage in the buildings that were demoed. We actually did assessments on every single building back in that 32 years ago. But today, generally speaking, we've been very fortunate, and I think it's a lot to do with our seismic reviews of our projects as we move forward. Hope that answers your question.
And I apologize if I misinterpreted what you were saying. I had one more question. I noticed on the Northridge slides, there was a reference, and your universities own some housing, but I think a preponderance of students may live in off-campus housing. What do you think about that conundrum, and how do you approach that?
So are we talking about privately owned off-campus housing?
Yes, I mean, because that would be damaged as well if it was close. You've got students who are the backbone of your, you've got students, you've got staff. They're the backbones of the people part of your university system. Do you have plans for non-university owned housing to support those students and staff that might be housed in it?
So
Oh, go ahead, Jack.
go ahead, Andrew.
Oh, I was just gonna say, so Northridge was well before my time, so I don't know fully what might have happened at the time. Part of our assessment process with the campuses would be those community impacts, particularly when it comes to our students, and finding some solutions for student housing would certainly be part of that process. We have an extensive mutual aid system, both within our campus as well as with other partner agencies. So we would certainly look at utilizing our other campuses to the extent that we can to help house and shelter students that are displaced by those incidents. And if not, then we would look to mutual aid from some of our outside agency partners.
Thank you. Other questions or comments from commissioners? Yes, Representative Custic.
First of all, thank you so much for being here this morning and presenting to us, and it's great to hear about all the great work and planning that you're doing. You mentioned that there are 6 structural engineers that are assigned to specific campuses within the CSU system, and I'm wondering how those campuses are chosen and if they periodically rotate so that each campus has that specialized attention.
We generally, so generally speaking, we've got engineers, let's say we got 2 or 3 engineers that are in the northern part of the state, and we got 2 or 3 engineers that are in the southern part of the state. Usually that's the ratio. Right now we have 1 vacancy. So, and we're looking actually to trying to find somebody in the Central Valley. That seems to be a little bit of a stretch, but each of the seismic review board members actually visit their campus at least once a year, if not twice. We generally don't rotate too often. Occasionally we will do that in terms of we will switch a couple of people around if it happens to be in terms of we try to keep the review board members in somewhat proximity of the campuses that they are assigned to. We don't generally do a rotation. And one of the reasons we don't do that is because what we feel is the best benefit of that is the seismic review board member gets to know nearly every building on the campus, certainly the buildings that, you know, that need attention. And so from that standpoint, that's one of the things that we believe is a hallmark of our program, is the fact that you have this consistency. We have some review board members who have been reviewing some of the campuses for nearly 20 years. So they know the buildings, they've walked through the campus many times. And so we find that institutional knowledge of the board members on the campus that they're assigned to is certainly one of the things we find as a great benefit to our program.
Other questions here in the meeting room? Do any commissioners who are joining us virtually have a question or a comment? Then I'm going to close this by thanking you for your presentation, and hopefully we will consider the presentation slides also part of the report.
So thank you very much.
Your slides were really, really informative, as was the report you presented as well. So thank you. Next item is agenda item 10, and we will receive a similar report from the University of California system, and I will turn it to staff for an introduction.
Thank you very much. Again, we are pleased to have the University of California reporting on what we call our AB 100 reports. We will be hearing from 2 people, the Executive Director of Capital Asset Strategies, Lauren Freeman, and Ellen Owens, the Director of Design and Construction Services. Again, thank you so much for your time and your willingness to work with the staff in getting your report ready to go. Thank you.
So thank you for having us here. We're really quite happy to be presenting on our program, and we look forward to any questions that you have at the end of the presentation. Just for introductions, I'm Lauren Friedman. I'm an architect, and I'm the Executive Director of Capital Programs at UC Office of the President. One of my primary responsibilities is to oversee UC's seismic program, and that includes the implementation of our seismic policy and guidelines, as well as oversight of our Seismic Advisory Board. And I am joined here today by Ellen Owens, who's the Director of Design and Construction Services. She's a key partner in the application and development of this program, and a key player in the development and participation of this presentation. So I'd like her to take a few moments to introduce herself and to start the presentation. It happens in every presentation from somebody.
Today, I'm the sacrificial lamb. Apologies all. Good morning, commission members and members of the public. My name is Ellen Owens. And as Lauren just mentioned, I'm the Director of Design and Construction Services at UCOP. And as an overview, I want to tell you a little bit about the university. The University of California occupies about 150 million gross square feet in over 6,000 owned buildings throughout the state of California. We have 10 campuses shown there on the map on the slide. Our Agricultural and Natural Resources Group, or ANR, and they have locations throughout the state. We also have 6 academic health centers and 3 national laboratories. While the UC seismic policy applies to all UC owned and about 6 million square feet of leased facilities, all within California, today's focus is going to be on our owned facilities. So, excuse me for 1 second, there are other things happening in the background there. In 1975, the university voluntarily developed our original seismic safety policy. The policies evolved with the current seismic safety policy addressing the non-OSHPD facilities for university operations. Our existing buildings meet the code that was in place at the time they were constructed. While they are not required to meet the same standards for new construction, UC leaders decided that we should go beyond the state's minimum standards to improve our buildings to mitigate risk to our community. The goal then, as it is now, is to provide an acceptable level of earthquake safety for students, employees, and the public who occupy our California facilities. The thinking was to implement a proactive approach that in a major earthquake would result in a reduction in the loss of life, injury, and risk, and enable us to return to operations quickly without major interruption. So here is a chart of the things that happened in different years to reinvigorate the program in response to code changes and to current knowledge of seismic engineering. A significant update to our policy occurred in 2017. The update includes the adoption of the 2030 date by which all seismic remediation was to be complete, the creation of a seismic mitigation task force that would evaluate and recommend the methodology for evaluating and prioritizing our seismic risk. That task force is now dormant as its work was completed, and the creation of our Seismic Advisory Board and the shift in oversight of the program from our Office of General Counsel to our Finance and Capital Strategies Group. In June 2018, we established an initiative to seismically reevaluate our inventory of over 6,000 owned buildings. These assessments considered factors such as the building's location, its construction type, occupancy, and other risk factors. The assessments were completed in January 2021 and resulted in the identification of approximately 70% of our inventory as being compliant with our policy. Those are buildings with a rating of 4 or better.
So after our assessments were completed, we found that more than 30% of our UC owned space, or approximately 47 million gross square feet, was found to be out of compliance, having those buildings having ratings of 5, 6, or 7. And it's important to note that those structures that were rated a 7, if they weren't previously unoccupied or secured they were secured and or demolished. Based on our 2017 policy, campuses are required to develop a plan to prioritize the upgrades to those policy non-compliant buildings that are rated 5 and 6, and take action to upgrade or vacate those buildings that are not compliant by 2030. So a really important note, and one that we're living with now, is that the 2030 date for policy compliance was established before we began our assessments. So at the time, we were interested in better understanding the inventory so that we could develop a path forward. We didn't have a sense of the enormity of the number of non-compliant buildings, the cost of the upgrades, or the limited availability of resources, both financial, staffing, availability of labor, and the like, that were required to achieve compliance. So this slide provides an overview of the 30% of the buildings that were found to be out of compliance. It shows the number of buildings and the approximate square footage that require attention. To address that need, campuses have been charged with developing plans for the prioritization and improvement of their non-compliant inventory. The prioritization is based on a whole big set of criteria, including the building rating, operational importance, available funding, among many other factors. Campuses then place their buildings into groups A, B, and C, with the group A buildings identified as the highest priority projects. This total of 1,526 buildings represents over $14 billion in seismic upgrade costs alone. This doesn't include other associated code upgrades, deferred maintenance, or other functional improvements that go along with doing this work. And as you can imagine, these are very gross numbers based upon the size of the program and the number of buildings and the duration that it would take to implement the improvements. These plans are reviewed and then they're updated annually by the campuses, and these reports are then submitted to us at the Office of the President. The changes, what we've seen, they've been doing these since around 2020. And we've seen that the changes have been really not substantial, but they do make adjustments based upon the availability of funding and occasionally reprioritization of their projects based upon need.
So over the past 3 years, our non-compliance rate has dropped from 47 million gross square feet to 42.5 million gross square feet, or it's dropped by about 10%. We were able to achieve this improvement through the completion of 30 building retrofits, the demolition of 25 buildings, and the improved reclassification of over 70 buildings, resulting from Tier 2 and Tier 3 building analyses. In the last year alone, many buildings realized improvement or compliance status in their rating through the completion of 6 building retrofit projects, 8 demolitions, and 32 reclassifications through more detailed analysis. And then this slide concentrates on the reanalysis. This shows the improvements that were made through conducting these more detailed Tier 2 or 3 assessments. We've reassessed over 300 buildings since the initial building assessments in 2021. About 25% of these buildings were found to be compliant after completing this process. In the last year, we reassessed 116 buildings, and through those assessments, 32 were found to be compliant. We're continuing this trend of Tier 2 and 3 evaluations, and we have over 450 additional evaluations that are either in process or are in the planning stages.
So despite all these efforts, we most certainly continue to have our challenges. The existing UC seismic safety policy requires that all of our buildings be brought into compliance by the end of 2030. Due to the enormity of the program and the limited funding resources, the campuses and other locations are greatly challenged in meeting that deadline. As such, given the massive gap in funding required to perform this work, we're currently in the process of revising the seismic safety policy to better prioritize future actions and deadlines. The goal is to provide a continual improvement goal versus one single deadline. And this will allow us to focus our available funds on the highest priority buildings, while we acknowledge that there is a requirement to make as much improvement as possible by 2030, and that that we won't be able to meet it as we're currently sitting. So the proposed policy changes will guide us in driving us towards this goal of continual improvement. We will continue to pursue all available funding options, including the GEO bond proposals that are currently working their way through the legislature, and we'll continue to prioritize all of our available funding on UC's highest priority projects, especially those that achieve multiple campus objectives. It's also, we're working with our Seismic Advisory Board to identify other methods for improving seismic safety in our buildings through the investigation of non-structural hazard mitigation and the like, so that we can, with a less robust investment, make our buildings safer for those that occupy them. And with that, I will thank you once again, and we're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
So much to both of you for being here today and for the report. We have commissioners both here in Sacramento in the meeting room, and we have 4 commissioners, it might be only 3 now, who are joining us virtually. Let me check and see who might have questions. Can you elaborate a little bit on the advisory board and or the mitigation task force? Are those the same thing, or and who's on it? What is the frequency of their work? And I don't know if you heard the report from Cal State University System about their peer review board. If you did hear that, perhaps you can compare and contrast.
Yeah, I'm familiar with their board. I actually sit on it as an observer and a representative from the University of California. Our board is quite different. Our board is strictly an advisory board. They do not at the CSU, they're much more involved with the campuses. They do a lot of peer review. We have our campuses, their peer review is done by consultants. So it's not our SAB members. We meet quarterly. We have 2 meetings that are in person. And we've reinstituted that since happily since COVID. And we meet via Zoom. Actually, it's an additional 4 times a year because we split our meetings into 2 half days. Our board advises us on policy. They look for methods that we can utilize to help us assess our buildings, help us be more prepared. We just issued with their involvement recommendations for campuses, recommendations for an RFQ that campuses can use to bring in consultants to do ground motion analyses, and which will help them when they are implementing a project. It will help them to better identify what their seismic risk is. They are helping us to identify what a non-structural hazard mitigation program might look like. They are recommending the installation of motion sensors in some of our buildings, and we're just beginning to investigate that. They were instrumental in the development of the policy and really helping us to identify those things that were important to evaluate when evaluating a structure. The problem, as I mentioned in one of the slides, is that none of us knew, none of the board members really understood what we were going to find once we did those assessments, but we still believe that they were incredibly valuable. They are incredibly valuable. And it really does help us to know what we're going to do with our funding when we do have funding. It has helped us. We had the development of a seismic risk model that the SAB was extremely involved in. They helped us identify the consultant who developed it, and it's been a great tool.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question?
It did. I really appreciated the understanding, the comparison, the contrast between the 2 entities and how to approach the challenges that faced with very important infrastructure. Other questions here in the meeting room from commissioners? Commissioner Rabbit.
So as I understand it, by extending the 2030 deadline to basically a as funded, incremental approach. Does the criteria change at all? Or is that still set within, what was proposed originally?
The criteria really remains the same. It's just that we're trying to keep pressure on the campuses without having them have complete anxiety over meeting a deadline. So we have all the same criteria. The prioritization remains the same, but we will be establishing a percentage per year improvement that they'll have to meet that will get them towards some deadline in the future that won't be 2030. We most likely, we're still working on what the policy revisions are going to be. So there isn't anything that I can say that's concrete at this point. But the goal is to identify what is a realistic deadline that will occur within at least my lifetime, I hope. And but will be implementable instead of just being sort of a wish for something that just can't happen because of the lack of funding.
Commissioners who are joining us virtually, does anyone have a question or a comment? Seeing no hands flying out there, I will bring it back here and thank you very much for the time you've taken today, for the report that you presented, and for the informative slides that we have as well. And appreciate the work that you're doing on behalf of higher education in California.
Thank you very much. It was really a pleasure.
Thank you. Item 11, which is the next item on our agenda, the presenter is not ready to be here because we're so efficient. So we're going to go to item number 12, and I will turn to staff. Thank you very much, Chair Silva. We'll be doing a few quick project updates. We'll be speaking about what we're still calling our Ferndale Turkey project because we haven't come on a better name yet. We'll talk about our current fire station inventory, the Northridge Anniversary Quake Heroes, which was an approved project from last year. And so we'll move forward, and then Dr. Hutchinson, who will be here as soon as she's done teaching her course, will give us a project update about the cold form steel shake table project. Next slide, please. So as you all remember, there's 3 parts to this project. There's 2 subcommittee members. Those are Representative Majura and Commissioner De La Cruz. The first part of the project was the report that you all approved today. Thank you very much. The second part of the project is a scenario study looking at doublet triggered events. There will be 2 of them, one in Northern California, one in Southern California. The Northern California event will be the Haywire event, earthquake. That'll be a magnitude 7.21. It'll be triggering Calaveras Fault with a magnitude 7.23. In Southern California, we'll have an event that's a magnitude 7.25 on Newport Inglewood that will trigger the Palos Verdes Fault with a magnitude 7.05. We have been working in concert with PEER, which we have a contract with, as well as USGS and OES and CGS. The volume 1 of that portion of the report will be presented July 18th, we're hopeful. And then volume 2 will be presented in October and at the October 10th meeting. Part 3 of that study, which is the in-court contract, which is looking at resilience and recovery project scenarios. We are still awaiting DGM's approval. We're having some issues getting that contract finalized. Once we have further information about that, we will provide that information. Next slide, please. So let's pause for a moment. Does anyone have any commissioners have questions or comments on this 3-part Ferndale plan? I'm tap dancing a little here, so that we can So that our professor at UC San Diego can finish teaching her class. All right, next slide.
Next slide, I'll try to speak slowly. This is the fire station inventory project. We have two commissioners that are part of our ad hoc committee, Representative Gould, for Ida Claire, and Commissioner Wells. We were working with the representatives of the ad hoc committee to go through our draft survey. They provided some input to us. We then submitted a small pilot project, or pilot that went out to 2 or 3 different fire stations, and we received information back from them, and we made some clarifying changes to our survey. So just for instance, one of the questions was about occupancy and whether we were speaking about sworn firefighters or civilian staff or both. So we made that kind of change to the survey so it was more clear. And then we also had a question about the photos we were actually asking them to capture because, for example, in San Francisco, you could have a fire station that has buildings on both sides. It's very difficult to get the side view of the building. So the question was, what do we do with that? So we made some clarifying language, and people understood that you capture as much of the view as possible. And then there was also some questions about the apparatus stores, and we wanted that information and data provided to us. So we made changes to that or reformatted the question. So it was apparent how we were speaking to front and rear doors. So that survey went to the beta testing. We received those responses back. We anticipate that we will release the survey on Monday in concert with Chief Marshal of Cal OES Fire, who's been very helpful in making sure that we are in direct contact with all of the fire stations in California. So we thank Chief Marshal and his staff for assisting us with that. Then once we begin to receive back that information, we'll continue our analysis and mapping and doing individual hazardous runs. Our goal is that the final report and hazardous information will be completed and we'll have recommended actions with partner groups. Hopefully by fall of this year. Given the way the beta test group went, and we have 3,500 or so fire stations, it may be past that date as we poke and prod and beg and plead for people to respond to the survey. May I ask a question? Absolutely.
We're trying to inventory what percentage of fire stations in the state?
Well, we are asking all fire stations to participate. We're hopeful that we will get at least 50%, but that's unnecessary.
So when you look at fire districts, like in Contra Costa Fire, there are what, 20 stations maybe?
Fire, 734, then we have
Right, and San Ramon Valley. So are we actually asking the survey respondent representing all of the stations under their purview? Or are we actually going to each, the 3,500 represents individual, the 30 that are in Confire?
So it's my understanding that Chief Marshal will send out to his list. It will be the person who's responsible who will then be asked to send it down to the individual fire station level. We will be doing follow-up though with all individual stations to try to ensure that we're getting them.
So Commissioner Wells isn't going out and doing this all on his own.
We're gonna give him maps and we're gonna send a car.
Just one clarification would be, it would go to the agencies responsible for it, so it wouldn't be going to every fire station captain at those individual.
Right, and then they would push it out.
Exactly.
And I have one other question. So did we want to know anybody who might be working in the fire station? Or are we only worried about swarms?
No, because of the way that the houses run works and the BCA run works, it's everybody who's in the fire station.
That would make sense. Any other questions on the fire station work? Really important, as we learned in Ferndale, those apparatus stores.
I'm sorry if I missed this, but how is it getting out to the volunteer fire departments? Or the special in the fire districts or whatever?
So Chief Marshal is pushing it out to the areas who are then supposed to push it out to the individual fire stations. And then for CAL FIRE has a list as well. I mean, it's going to CAL FIRE and CAL FIRE is working with their own station.
Right, yeah, they contract in some places, but it's really the volunteer, like Rio Del, has volunteer fire
It'll go to every single fire
It will.
department in the state.
regardless. Okay. Thank you.
And Rio Del was one of our beta testers.
Any questions from commissioners virtually? I don't see anything. Thank you for the slight delay.
Next slide, please. Our next project is the Quake Heroes project, which was also approved last year. Unfortunately, we are still having issues getting this contract approved as well. So once we have some updates, we will provide that to you. This movie does not go out of date or out of fashion. So once it's available, it's still a good resource for those communities. Next. Questions?
Any questions on the Quake Heroes? I was gonna say DGS, but you know, I'm sure we all have questions about it.
What's the holdup?
It has to do with non-competitive bid and sole source, even though they are the owners of the movie. And some other issues regarding where they might be holding it, but until we get some kind of approval to move forward, it's hard for them to get any cost and specificity where they might be doing.
Item 13.
Next slide, please. Okay, so these are miscellaneous items for your attention. Receiving a commissioner resource binder from us early next week that has a lot of information that will be pertinent to you. And so look for that. We're required to provide that to you once a year. We do have a question. We'll be sending out a poll regarding the Seismic Safety Commission meeting start time, understanding that it may be difficult for people who live outside of the area to get here by 9 a.m., particularly if they have to travel from Southern California or other remote locations. So we'll be querying about whether you'd like to move that back to 10 a.m. We also want to let you know and congratulate Commissioners Kim Lopez, Commissioner Miyamoto, and Commissioner McGowan on their reappointments, which will be going down into now 2027, I believe. And then we also are interested in starting a quarterly collaborative meetings with other entities, which would include CGS, OES, Department of Water Resources, Caltrans, HCI, and DGS, looking at all things seismic. As we've had several meetings with a number of these organizations, it's become apparent that they don't know what the other is doing. And so we'd like to take the opportunity here to have some collaborative meetings so everybody is aware of what's happening in the seismic world across the agencies.
Now, some of those have a reporting requirement to us, the CGS, the DWR, Caltrans. Others do not. So, but they have some interaction with us, like DGS evidently approves our contracts.
Yeah, and they house a lot of state, they own a lot of state buildings, and have other responsibilities. So, we will be working to do that. I think it's been great. We had a meeting with Caltrans and HPI the other day, so that was kind of interesting and learning what everybody's doing. They are the hospital organization. They used to be off that makes many different pockets of state. So that's the quarterly collaborative meetings. We look forward to having those, quarterly. And then we wanted to let you know that our engineer, Jolene Conley, is not here today, because she is actually at the EERI, the Earthquake Engineering Research Institute meeting that's up in Seattle. She is actually presenting on, and at the earthquake and climate change portion of the meeting on synergies for health, safety, resilience, and sustainability. So congratulations to her for being asked to speak at that meeting. I have a couple other comments. One, before I get to this last one there, is that it takes a lot to run these meetings. We do a lot of dry runs, and we're here very early. There's a lot of efforts in going to put the meetings together. So I always like to take an opportunity to thank our staff. They do a tremendous job in making sure that we get our meetings done well, and to legal counsel, who's always providing assistance to us as we move through the process. So thank you all very much. And before my last item, which is probably a little bit off topic here, is, oh, there we go, we had a lot of slides. Before we get to this last one here is, we don't often have an opportunity to celebrate individual people because of the way things happen time-wise, but tomorrow is Trinity's birthday, so we want to wish her a happy birthday. And thank her for all of the good work. Oftentimes these meetings don't align with birthdays, so we like to take an opportunity to celebrate. So happy birthday, Trinity. Lastly, we'd like to thank Chair Silva for all of her service to the commission. She has been a commissioner since 2017. She was vice chair. Commissioner Rabbit asked me that question 2 weeks ago, and I went, I don't know. She was vice chair from September of 2020 to May of 22, and has been chair since that time. She has served on several ad hoc committees, including the one that was the search for the executive director. She was instrumental in the HOG and COG development, working to make it more accessible for people, as well as getting it translated into Spanish. And of course, her assistance with the recent Rio Del report should be noted. I also would like to extend my appreciation for all of the support and efforts that you've shown me in my role. So thank you very much, and congratulations. Thank you. Congratulations on stepping down. I don't know.
I've only mentioned it 5 times this morning.
So that is the end of my report.
So I don't see our speaker here. She's still in class.
Yeah.
So congratulations, Commissioners Kim Lopez, McGowan, and Miyamoto. Is there some coincidence that you're the 3 that are joining us virtually? But congratulations on your reappointment, and I look forward to continuing to work with you.
If need be, we could push Dr. Hutchinson to July if we would like to move forward.
Well, we can move to item 14, which is public comments for items not on the agenda. We'll see if anybody from the public who has joined us wishes to speak to us on items not on the agenda. Do you have any hands raised virtually? Crickets, huh? Okay. All right, I'm gonna ask the attorney for a little advice. We could go to item 15, which is the election of chair and vice chair. Because at a certain point, the professor's class will be over. Can we do that here now and then return for the last item?
We do have a chance for public comment at the beginning for any items that were on the agenda.
And we've done that now, items not on the agenda.
Right, I would just recommend that, given that we have a time associated with that, just at the end, if we have time to briefly just check in to see if anyone.
All right, I'll see if there's any new people. So we're going to go to the election of the chair and vice chair.
Yeah.
All right. The next item on the agenda is the election of chair and vice chair, and I will hand it to staff for an overview of how we're going to do this and what this involves.
Thank you very much. Next slide, please. So as a reminder, at the January 11th meeting, we announced this upcoming election of the chair and vice chair. Wasn't a March 15th meeting, but on March 15th, the SOQs were due. We received several. And then on April 11th, which is today, we'll conduct the meeting in an open session. And the chair and vice chair assume their roles immediately following the vote. Sorry. So when we vote in open session, the candidates may address the commission for no more than 3 minutes. It is not a requirement. Commissioners may ask one question of each candidate. The chair and elected vice chair must receive a majority of the votes. In this case, we have the vice chair is running unopposed. We still need to vote for that position. Until the positions are filled, the current chair and vice chair remain in their respective positions. And the officers again will assume their duties immediately following the vote. Next slide, please. So in your package, you should have received the SOQs. The SOQ for vice chair, Commissioner Deborah Garnes applied to that. She also applied for chair, but then stepped back. So you will see that she is not on the chair list. So Commissioner Deborah Garnes has applied for vice chair, and for the chair position, the applications came from Commissioner David Radditt and Commissioner Freddie Rodriguez. Next slide, please. So there you have a beautiful picture of Commissioner Deborah Garnes. She has elected not to address the commission at this time. Next slide, please. So this would be the opportunity for commissioners to ask a question, and I can take it from here. Commissioner Garnes, thank you for applying to be our vice chair for the coming year. Are you sure you don't have any comments you would like to make?
Not really. I think we should have a
Members of the
fund
commission.
for coffee. I think we should have a commissioner fund for coffee, but
Feel like we're back in 8th grade. I'm promising a recess after every year.
Got my vote.
Any questions from commission members for Commissioner Garnes? Those of you who are attending virtually, I know you'll use your raised hand feature, and I will make every effort to see your raised hand. So I don't see any questions. So I will going to turn it to a roll call vote. The motion is to elect Commissioner Garnes vice chair for 2024-25. I have a second on the motion.
That's it.
All right, let's take the roll call.
Chair Silva,
Aye.
Vice Chair Rodriguez, represented by Allison Kustick.
Aye.
Commissioner Portantino, represented by Ashton Kokobon.
Aye.
Commissioner Claire.
Aye.
Commissioner Garnes. Aye. Commissioner De La Cruz.
Aye.
Commissioner Ward, represented by Lori Missouri. Aye. Commissioner Kim Lopez,
Aye.
Representative Irina Brosman. Aye. Commissioner McGowan.
Aye.
Up here. Commissioner Rabbit. Aye. Commissioner Wells.
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
Congratulations. We look forward to the coffee solution that you. Next is the consideration of the applicants for chair. We have Commissioner David Radditt and Commissioner Freddie Rodriguez. I'm going to take this in alphabetical order. But each of the applicants, candidates will have an opportunity to speak for up to 3 minutes. But Representative.
So Representative Rodriguez is off the floor now for the assembly. He is attempting to sign in on Teams, is that correct?
No.
Or should he do Zoom? Zoom, okay. We'll have him sign in on Zoom and then should.
All right. Would you like to wait until Assemblymember Rodriguez, or would you like to go forward?
Whatever you wish.
Somebody running a timer. Or we can sing the Jeopardy song 6 times.
I'm ready.
When you want.
Well, I appreciate the different format that I'm not necessarily used to, but I appreciate that. I do agree with the coffee though. That would be number one, moving forward. I think I am perhaps the longest serving, if not one of the longest serving, on the commission. I was appointed twice by Jerry Brown and once by Gavin Newsom. And I'm the longest serving on my board of supervisors in Sonoma, and I'm current chair this year, and that's my 4th stint as chair of the board. Prior to that, I was on the Petaluma City Council for 4 years. I'm an architect by profession. So I bring forward a little bit of both. And I know when I was going through the process, I was questioned a lot about whether I was representing architecture or local government. I think having both benefits. It's fine. Okay. And I do think that I'm also chair of our Sonoma Water, which supplies water to about 600,000 people. I'm on the Golden Gate Bridge District. We're entering into our last and major $800 million seismic upgrade of the main span after going through the more vulnerable areas earlier. I'm second vice president of the bridge board. I was 2 years chair of our Sonoma Marin area rail transit, a 6-year-old 45-mile commuter rail. I'm an MTC commissioner in the Bay Area, and I'm currently chair of the on the executive board, also chair of the regional network management, which used to be operations, but it's moving towards trying to solve the transit fiscal cliff and previous programming and allocations, and a director of ABAG, where I served as president for 2 terms. As I mentioned earlier, Sonoma County has had literally 19 emergencies, 9 of those federally declared. And that's in my tenure of the last 14 years. So we have had just one thing after another, and I've learned a lot along the ways. The one thing that I keep mentioning and pointing out is that earthquake is around the corner, as we all know. To be prepared, I think some of there's crossover in terms of the preparation and the recovery efforts, but it'll be look a little different going forward. And as chair, I typically, as I work on all these different regional boards and locally, really just want to be represent the commission well, work with staff well, make sure we run a really efficient meeting, and facilitate a meeting where everyone participates and feels like they're heard, and make sure that we have our agendas set as staff has done such a great job at our current chair. So, I put my name out there since I've been here for the number of years I have now, and I like to step up and you'll consider. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. We are going to take questions. Wow. Amazing. Take questions for both candidates after they've both presented. So I heard another voice join. Is the assembly member with us?
Yes, he's right there.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes,
It's
okay.
nice to see. As a first item, you have up to 3 minutes, if you so choose, to tell us about yourself and why you are running. And then Commissioner Rabbit just finished. I think you've heard part of it. And then we will go to questions from commissioners for both of you. So when you are ready, would you like to speak to us? And if so, when you're ready, let us know.
Yes, I'm ready now if you are.
Okay, we do have a timer running. We will de-mic you at the end of 3 minutes.
Okay. All right, well, welcome and good afternoon to all the commissioners. Thank you for the time to share my background and desire to serve as commissioner's chair. Safety and public service are the hallmarks of my career. Before being elected as assembly member, I worked as a first responder for over 30 years. I've responded to nearly every type of natural and human-caused disaster, including earthquakes. I have seen firsthand the devastating impact earthquakes have on communities and understand the need to improve our planning and preparedness. In the legislature, emergency management and seismic safety in particular have been my focus. 3 years ago, I requested Speaker Rendon to create the Assembly Committee on Emergency Management to provide special attention on the issues of disaster preparedness and response. As being the first elected chair of the committee, it's been my goal to increase public awareness of risk and of emergencies and invest state resources in prevention. In particular, I've worked to prepare our state for 2 concurrent disasters, such as an earthquake, flood, pandemic, fire, or any other disaster. Over the last 2 years, I've allocated for $250 million in state funding to retrofit multifamily soft-story housing units for seismic safety. The first $15 million has been authorized, but California needs to do more to complete all necessary retrofits. As chair of the commission, I would continue to advocate for the funding to complete this important work. I've convened several oversight hearings on earthquake-related topics, including how California is prepared to respond and recover from a major earthquake, such as the one that struck Turkey and Syria just over a year ago. My committee has also recently held hearings looking at long-term challenges for communities recovering from natural disasters, including earthquakes. On Monday, my committee held a hearing on utility disruptions, such as electricity and gas, which can be caused by a major earthquake. I've attended international delegations to Panama and Japan to learn and share expertise in seismic safety with other countries, and I'm excited to continue fostering state, national, and international partnerships to further the work of the commission. Additionally, I have close working relationships with other members of the legislature, the governor's office, Cal OES, and I would maintain open and frequent lines of communication for the commission. As chair, I would be my goal to use the expertise of the commission's members, staff to expand relationships with local and federal partners, all with the goal of increasing assistance for California communities implementing earthquake preparedness measures. Additionally, I would promote a public education and awareness campaign about the risk of earthquakes and the steps Californians can take to prepare and protect themselves. I'm excited to continue working with the commission to research, make.
Thank you very much. So at this point, commissioners, you have an opportunity to ask a single question of each of the candidates. So with the same question of both candidates, and what I will do is alternate. So ask your question and then I'll pick which one will go first, which one will go second. We'll go back and forth so they have an equal opportunity to be last or first, depending on which their preference is. So who amongst you has questions? Raise your hand. Oh, the interpreter raised his hand. So I'll ask the first question. So when you consider your tenure on the commission, which, why don't you remind us of what your tenure is when you answer the question? What do you think the most significant thing that the commission has done during your tenure? And what do you see as the one thing you would focus on as chair in the coming year? And we'll start with Commissioner Rabbit.
Well, I think the reorganization of the commission, I think, was the largest thing that happened on the commission and probably the most profound in terms of financial sustainability going forward from where we once were, which was every year not knowing what the future held. So I think there's much more stability, and that's a good thing overall. I think as I look back, and I very much appreciate Miyamoto's presentations to us of the lessons learned and the experiences that we've all gone through, bringing those home. As an architect at 89, living in Marietta and working in San Francisco, I can tell you many things that changed post that earthquake and the lessons learned that we brought forward from there. Every time there's a disaster for me in our county, the amount of houses and things that we've lost, the lives that we've lost, there's lessons learned going forward there. And making sure that we can communicate that to all communities. And again, I think this idea of what we talked about earlier today on the FEMA financial thresholds, the financial impact of local representing local government, the financial impact of local government on a disaster of any type is tremendous. And to make sure that that's and I don't think that, to be honest, certainly the first disaster that we had, I thought it was a huge federally declared disaster, that we would be fully reimbursed for all out-of-pocket expenses. Not the case whatsoever. And it really makes you want to make sure that you're communicating that to those folks out there that are faced with that same dilemma come that next big earthquake. The work that the commission has done overall on the research side of things, and tying that into what happened for me in Loma Prieta, I think is a very positive thing. The survey, fire department or the fire station survey. My son's in the San Francisco fire, so I know that those stations well. I think that's also hospitals. My wife works for UCSF. They're building a new hospital across the street in compliance with deadlines to make sure that they're safe. So I think the work that the commission's done is important. Needs to continue going forward. But I think it's really about communication, like making sure that the public is aware. It's out of sight, out of mind. The earthquake side of things, and you just need to make sure that we're doing our due diligence to make sure people are going to be aware. That big of that.
Thank you. Commissioner Rodriguez, same question to you. Do you need me to repeat it? Somebody needs to turn his microphone back on.
Okay, can you hear me now? Yes, if you can,
Yes.
if you don't mind.
The question was, remind us of your tenure on the commission, and first half of the question is, during that tenure, what do you think the most significant thing that the commission has done? And then going forward, as you look at the next year, because this being chair is for a year at a time, what would you see as the most important work that we can do?
I think with that starting off, I've been a little over a year now in the commission. I'm very honored and blessed to be on this commission and be part of a very unique group of individuals that focuses on, to me, is a big issue in California. When we talk about earthquake, seismic activity, and lessons learned from the past, I think everything that happens in the last year or so, and up until just what happened recently with the earthquakes, lessons learned, I think we're a very valuable resource to learn from other countries, other parts of the state, how they've affected our communities, and how we can be a leader in California as far as preparedness and response to earthquakes. I look at California as being a disaster-prone state, right? From the fires to floods, and that ever looming earthquake, right? We know that we're way overdue for that major earthquake along the San Andreas. So how can we be prepared with the resources throughout the state? But not just that with the earthquake, but just so happens if we have that major earthquake on the San Andreas, and what about if it's during the fire season, we're having a major fire as well? How are resources ready to respond to two major disasters simultaneously, whether it's in Southern California or Northern California, right? I'm also looking at advocating for better resources, and as I talk to the funding at the state level, how we can start to address some of these issues of seismic retrofitting programs throughout our state. I know it's going to take a lot of money, but we got to continue to work with our colleagues, not here at the state level, but also the federal level, and making sure that the governor's office is aware of how important it is to make sure that we provide the resources for our communities. Once again, California loves to be a leader in so many different things, but I think because of, once again, I see California as a disaster-prone state, we need to be the leader in preparedness and response to earthquakes, because we all know we're way overdue, and it's just part of living in California and being the advocate, working with everybody to make sure we have all the resources and all the expertise that we have with the folks that we have on the board moving forward, and really building on that and maybe how we can find it, we could take California in a better direction to truly be that leader in preparedness and response.
Commissioner De La Cruz, you have a question for our two candidates.
One of the things that I was excited about in this kind of reconfiguration of the commission is the focus on people, and I'm happy to serve in that capacity as the social service representative. I would love to hear how you have lived or learned experience that allows you to really see and serve the folks who may sit on the margins of our society, and to really center how we can ensure that they have an equitable recovery as well as an equitable response in every disaster.
We'll go to Commissioner Rodriguez first, and let's see if we can time these at 90 seconds so that we're at equitable time. Commissioner Rodriguez.
Yes, well, once again, obviously, California is a very diverse areas in our communities from north to south. We got to make sure how do we better utilize our resources across the board, right? But it takes all of us working together with our communities, making sure that we are there to respond to everybody, no matter where you live, where you're located, and really your nationality background. Make sure that we're also putting messages out there in people's different languages, right? There's so many different languages in the state. How we can work together with our partners at the local levels to make sure that messaging is out there, that nobody will be left behind, especially during the earthquake, one of the worst times in someone's life, right? It affects where you live, that make sure we have the resources there and working together that make sure, once again, nobody's left behind in the event of any type of emergency.
Thank you. Commissioner Rabbit?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the question, and I'll agree. As you know, in Sonoma County, we did have the Office of Equity, of which you have done a great job chairing. Appreciate that, and directing. I'm first generation American. I grew up in San Francisco. Both my parents were from Ireland, and you know, we grew up in a bit of a hard scrabble, and so my father was a laborer, became a carpenter, and then ultimately a contractor. I'm an architect, as my father was that contractor. I was first to graduate from college. I think it's really in understanding the diversity and the lessons learned, again, going back to the disasters that we've had. And I know that Alegria knows this well. We're having language access come to us shortly to have a policy in place for the entire county. We've learned how to communicate with everyone much better than we have. And I believe that making sure that always stays front and center of one's mind is important, especially in times of disaster. Really, it is about the people, and it's about making sure that you're reaching all.
Any other questions from those of us who are joining us virtually? Then I'll bring it back into the meeting room. Any other questions for our candidates?
Yeah. One question, I don't know if it's both questions, it's just I would like to know if Commissioner Rodriguez would be present for the commission meetings. Would he be the chair, sitting in the chair, or would?
No offense.
Or will be the representative? That would be doing, it's a technical
Actually, a
question. I
technical
don't,
question
yeah.
for staff.
Oh, okay, I didn't,
Protocol question.
oh,
I don't know that we have a specific procedure. Do we have legal counsel opinion on whether it would be a representative or the actual commissioner has to chair?
So I reviewed this statute as well as our, the commission's internal policies, and there's no language on that. I believe the current rule as stated is that commission members, you know, can appear as themselves or with a representative, and, I have seen no language to the contrary that states that it would be different for a chair. There's no requirement for that.
Thank you. Any other questions? Then I will close the Q&A period. And we will call for the vote. This is how this will work. When your name is called, you either say one candidate or the other candidate. I suppose you can say abstain, but in a democracy, don't abandon your right to vote. So, everybody clear? All right. Now, if you are, since the commissioner is here, you will not be voting.
She has to vote.
Oh, she has to vote?
Yes, yes.
Because he can't, he's not in the forum call.
Yes.
Correct, okay. So, Call the roll.
Current Chair Silva,
Commissioner Rabbit.
Vice Chair Rodriguez, represented by Ivan Costic. Vice Chair Rodriguez. Commissioner Portantino, represented by Astrid Hokoban.
I unfortunately have to abstain. I'm sorry.
Commissioner Claire.
Commissioner Rabbit.
Commissioner Barnes.
Commissioner Rabbit.
Commissioner De La Cruz.
Commissioner Rodriguez,
Commissioner Ward, represented by Lorena Zura.
Commissioner Rabbit.
Commissioner Tim Lopez.
Commissioner Rodriguez.
Representative Irina Brosnan.
Commissioner Robert.
Commissioner McGowan.
Commissioner Rabbit.
Commissioner Rabbit.
Commissioner Rabbit.
And Commissioner Wells.
Commissioner Rabbit.
That is. We have 8 for Commissioner Rabbit and 3 for Rodriguez. What do you vote? It would be Commissioner Rabbit.
Congratulations, Commissioner Rabbit. And thank you, Commissioner Rodriguez, Assemblymember Rodriguez, for your willingness to serve as, for the commission. Technically, I am no longer chair and you will leave this portion if you're willing. Just do it anyway.
Please, are we taking that one agenda?
Agenda, yes, Josh. Please available. Right, so the agenda item, we're going to go backward now, to get an update on the UC shake table. And, the professor is joined us, and so we look forward to, that presentation.
Hi, can you hear me okay? Okay, thank you for the check. Give me a second to share my screen and get all the technical logistics out. Share that one. Okay, just one more check. Are you able to see the slide deck in presentation mode on your end?
Yes, we are.
Okay, great. Thanks so much for the confirmation. Well, oh, and one laser pointer. There we go. Well, thank you very much for just taking a few minutes out of your agenda to allow me to share an update on our ongoing work, supported through a number of different partners, but a key to part of our partnership, of course, is the Commission's contribution. My name is Tara Hutchinson. I've had the pleasure to talk with many of you in the past. I'm the PI, serving as a PI for our Commission portion of this contribution and working with Professor Falco Kuster, Richard Emberley, and Dr. Brian Meacham on our tasks specific to the Commission's contribution to this effort. But overall, I have a fantastic team coming from largely stemming from our initial work on this effort, which was funded by the National Science Foundation. That allowed us to partner across the country with researchers at Johns Hopkins, University of Massachusetts, and elsewhere, in industry, of course. Those highlighted in red here on this title slide deck, I should mention, are those that are supported through the Commission's effort. So this is a very brief update. I was squeezed down to, I think, 5 minutes. No academic can really realistically speak in 5 minutes. I'll do my level best and happy to share any slides. And you see, I have 55 and can jump around if Q&A delegates, but or leads us in that direction. But in a nutshell, our 10-story building capstone program is an effort that intends to study full-scale, complete cold-form steel building framing systems, subjecting a scenario building, a case study building, to a sequence of damaging earthquake motions at our 6 degree of freedom outdoor shake table here at UC San Diego. highlight for us in this effort has been really to push the limits of design. ASCE 7 limits this type of lightweight and very high performing construction to 10 stories. And we aim here to push the limit to 100 feet. So it's now falling in the realm of a tall building structure. We're also have the opportunity through the Commission's contribution to take a look not only at multi-directional seismic loading, but also importantly cap the effort with the execution of various fire following earthquake scenarios. We've long been in the waiting to begin the physical construction of this specimen that you see rendered on the right, while the facility was undergoing an upgrade, large and extensive upgrade to 6 degrees of freedom that carried us through the pandemic, and a large and long collaboratory mass timber multi-phase program was conducted. That program has since just completed its work, and finally we are slated to occupy the table in July of this year. Following construction and instrumentation, our projection is that seismic testing will occur in spring of 2025, March through April of 2025, and live fire testing will follow shortly thereafter, just prior to summer or at the spring point to summer of 2025. I have lots of updates I could share with the group. From the building specimen to the fire test program, some work we're doing on repair and retrofit actions, our new effort of extending the study to capitalize on the use of unmanned aerial vehicles, and our work on outreach to new partners. But of course, we're limited on time, so I'll focus a little bit on what we've done to the building specimen, where we're progressing in terms of the fire test program, and share with you our thoughts on the UAV work, which was a newly funded aspect of the program. In terms of the design updates new to the program, we've been fortunate to garner additional partnership courtesy of the Department of Housing and Urban Development. As we know, 1/3 of the country's homeless population resides here in the state of California. Modular construction, volumetric modular construction is an emerging construction technology that demonstrates promise to try to solve some of these housing issues. Our case study building, actually our archetype building, was designed initially as a residential structure. So we proposed to HUD, and with a partnership with Midrise Modular and industry, a new industry partner, that we study 3 different construction modalities with this specimen, namely stick framing. This is cold form steel, repetitively framed structure. So we propose to look at 1D stick framing, panelized construction, and modular construction all in one test specimen, attacking a number of different construction issues along the road. We're even more fortunate in that Clark Construction, a leader in construction innovation, has signed up to serve as a general contractor for the program, and they have been innovating modular construction in lots of different dabblings across their sector in the last few years. So they've been an outstanding partner. I mentioned stick framing. This is an explosion of that stick framing, allows us to adapt to any foundation, and in our case, adapt to the shake table. 2-dimensional panels, another promising construction technology. Panels, both the floor panels and wall units will be fabricated using 2-dimensional panel construction, still facilitates that ease of construction while surrounding other service features in building infrastructure. And so in our particular building, you don't see it here in this rendering, but we have a stair system, a resilient stair system, which will run and service egress and ingress to the building. So cost efficient and improving the speed of construction. 2D panelized construction is recognized as having some promise. Finally, we'll integrate modular volumetric construction in the one space in the building where we actually have modular rooms. So this is all a new development for us in the program. Fire program test updates. I promise to offer shed a little light on where we are in this. Share briefly where we are with the planning here. Here we've planned 4 live fire test scenarios, specifically along 3rd quadrants up the height of the building, and as well within one of the stair compartments. Stair fire scenarios are very real, and investigating those will be very valuable, courtesy of the specimen. We're pushing the envelope and looking at longer duration fires than we have in past scenarios. We've been working with our campus and environmental folks to get secure all of the, and we have secured all of the environmental permits for that. This is a floor plan of the test building. You can see the live compartment fires in level 3, 6, and 9 that are being planned, and the live fire test compartment surrounding the stair compartment on the left side of this diagram, which is the west room. Tests will be conducted with a mix of solid wood cribbing. That's how we will achieve that longer duration burn of upwards of 60 minutes, and furnishings, a mixture of those two, with more than 200 distributed sensors planned throughout the spaces. We were also quite fortunate to add to our team the expertise of Dr. Thomas Gurney of Johns Hopkins University. He happened to, in parallel, secure a National Science Foundation Young Investigator Career Award. And he proposed to the NSF to conduct pre and post-test fire modeling scenarios. So he's been aiding the team based on the architectural and renditions that we have in the specimen that are common to this type of residential structure. He's been aiding the team in assessing structural stability and thermal loading pre-test, and then we'll follow naturally with some post-test modeling once the data is available. There we go. Final update that I can share with you. Last year, we approached the commission with an inquiry regarding the potential to enrich this program with advanced remote sensing tools. Specifically, we hope to utilize unmanned aerial vehicle based monitoring. We wanted to attack the problem and see if this monitoring could help us as a case use study to feed into protocols that might be used for citizen scientists. And so we're interrogating what's going on in terms of the role of UAVs across different levels of our sector, regional and at the city level, but we're working locally, utilizing a UAV that we have, a handful of UAVs we have, but specifically we're targeting one of them and building a sensor payload that would help us monitor both the seismic loading scenario and the live fire loading scenario. So you see here one of the UAVs that we have in-house that's available to us. We had just asked the commission for a bit of resources to enrich this specimen with particulate, data logger, anemometers, and we've decided to go towards IR cameras. We have an available IR camera to us to take a look at thermal patterns in flight as we're inspecting the specimen. So we'll hope to garner some information regarding the wide range of data during flyby, during both of these test scenarios with the new onboarded UAV. This is just a snapshot of that Alta X that we're proposing to use. This has a very large payload capacity, so to help us out with those very unique monitoring capabilities. We did pilot some of our ideas for the seismic motion tracking. We were successful partnering with the Tallwood program when it was in a 10-story configuration. We as well decided to investigate a wide variety of patterns, available patterns, because we know in the wild or in the real life, we won't have patterns available to us. So we'd like to study resolution and pattern matching algorithms, which would best work on real structures. So we had an opportunity to partner with the 6-story mass timber program for that. And you can see here the quite robust rooftop displacement histories that we were able to track. The overlay here between green and blue traces demonstrates the integration of double integrated accelerometers placed at the center of mass of this rooftop specimen compared to the UAV derived video-based analysis results. I think I have one video, if I can start it. There it goes. Yep, so you can just see the rooftop moving, and the crosses are the tracking points at midpoint that have been collectively tracked. Quite robust performance. We're still dissecting some of this data to identify which pattern matches the best and why, and what kind of resolution and errors that gives us. But I think we have a good handle from some of these data sets how we can apply this to the specimen tested, the cold form steel specimen. So last point, just a bit on our schedule. We've been working on procurement of materials and reviewing shop drawings. I mentioned that the shake table is available to us in July of 2024. The progression of activities for us is first to be installing some large transfer plates and performing motion iteration. The 10 stories will be constructed across a span of August through about October into November of this year. And then we'll spend, unfortunately, the winter months installing instrumentation, which is a little bit more of a challenge now in San Diego than it used to be. Installing instrumentation and safety harnesses and the like for the specimen as it's due to its large height. And then I mentioned the projection for seismic testing in spring and into summer for the live fire scenarios. So I want to make sure I end with a really welcoming acknowledgement to all of the partners so far, including the commission. We continue to benefit from all of your excellent input, and I'm blessed to be a part of this fantastic team of academic, government, and industry partners.
So thank you very much. Can you reiterate when you're going to try to burn it down and shake it out?